I will say too, starting in third grade, this is definitely a younger group at 8 and 9. So I really do a lot of whole class scaffolding. So I'm sure it looks very different by the time you're getting into upper grades. But as far as my classroom goes, I introduce my lights turned off on me. I introduce a whole classroom discussion. And so I'll pull up a weird news, say, hey, what do you guys think? Kind of like you started our webinar today. And then we'll same thing, listen for certain vocabulary words, or I'll even ask them silly questions like, what was the name of our podcast host today? What was the joke at the end? Do you guys get it? Because I'm also still trying to build even their like sense of humor at that age. They don't necessarily always understand the jokes at the end. So really it's just exposing them to what Listenwise is and exposing them to the goal of we're going to listen to this for the purpose of answering a question, not just following the instructions that I give you at the beginning of the day, like their usual listening skills are. But hey, we're going to talk about it, turn and talk with a partner, stand up, go find someone wearing the same color shoe as you. And it's just really a whole classroom discussion or partner talk. So after I would say a few weeks of that, we're in week 7 now, and we're still in that classroom discussion phase. They just have not picked up as quickly this year. I'd say by quarter 2 and a few more weeks, we're going to start doing some more journal tasks. And Listenwise provides us with questions underneath certain podcasts. So sometimes I'll pull those questions, or sometimes I'll even add in a few of my own too if I need to scaffold up or down, depending on how my class is doing. That way it's feeling like more of a task. It's not just like, hey, this is funny, I like to listen to it, haha, I can mess around when I'm up with my neighbor and she has no idea. And now I'm checking their journals. I'm able to see if they're hearing the important things and catching on. And we're also practicing writing complete sentences and race responses and restating our questions, things like that. So it ties into our writing as well, which has been really nice. So I can move it around throughout my day too. If I want to do it during writing time, I can, or reading. Once I get a little later in the year, it becomes a station assignment, which sounds very similar to maybe how upper grade does it, right? Those kids are a little more independent. So by the time I'm building up their stamina, they are independent enough to do it at a station, and they know what my expectations are and what Listenwise expectations are. Ultimately, by the time they are doing those assignments, I am just major prepping them for the CASP, which is our state test here in California. So I am making sure that they can listen to a certain level or a certain length of text and answer those questions efficiently and properly. And so that's nice for me too, to be able to check those station assignments and be able to provide one-on-one help as necessary too. And that they do have options for the ELD students as far as like translation goes or things like that. So station assignments are definitely super helpful. And my favorite thing about this is by the end of the year, when they get to the CASP test, we've put in all this work, all this time goes into prepping them, and all this time for Listenwise, which is something new for a lot of us teachers here. And it just seems like that extra task, but it makes my teacher heart happy when we get to the state test at the end of the year and we close out and they say, Miss Jones, I knew how to answer that test, that question, because I know what word I was listening for. I know you told me to read the question and find an important word, and I heard it and I could go back and forth. So you also teach them all these skills on how to be successful when doing it on their own. And that just brings joy to my heart when I can see them be successful on their own after all the scaffolding that we do throughout the year.
Wow, Hannah, thanks so much for sharing. It sounds like you're really working to, build in that independence into their classroom. For people joining from other states, this can be greatly paired with the WIDA test, as that also mirrors it very well. One thing that teachers have shared too about as it starts to get closer to testing season, they turn off the ability for students to have access to that transcript. So they're really, really practicing those listening skills without the transcript. So